folks, and welcome to another episode of Real Gems Requests. And today we have a very special request. In fact, we have a letter here from Little Eddie G in Splunktown, Maine. And Little Eddie writes, "Dear Mr. Real Gems, I really like your videos and I watch them all the time. They are really good. Could you do a review of Mr. Roberts? It is a good movie that I really like and I think you'll like it too. Sincerely, Eddie G." Well, Eddie, I think we can accommodate you on that. In fact, in this episode, it looks like we'll be reviewing Mr. Roberts.
I forgot my motorcycle!
Come on, you swimmer!
Mr. Roberts is the 1955 World War II comedy drama based on the novel and Broadway play of the same name. It was directed by legendary filmmaker John Ford, along with Mervyn Leroy and Joshua Logan. Yep, this movie took 3 directors to make, so you know it's got to be good. And it stars a slew of well-known veteran actors, including James Cagney, Jack Lemmon, William Powell in his final performance, and old Tom Joad himself, Henry Fonda, in the title role. So the movie centers around the captain and crew of the U.S. cargo ship Reluctant, in particular the ship's executive officer, Mr. Roberts, who's really itching to see some action before the war is over. So before we begin, make sure you all hit that like, hit the subscribe, leave a comment, and let's get into it. So the movie begins in the waning days of World War II, where the morning reverie aboard the USS Reluctant brings some bad news.
Because another cigarette butt has been found in the container of the captain's palm tree, there will be no movies again tonight.
Meanwhile, the ship's executive officer, Mr. Roberts, is joined by the ship's doctor, and the two chat about the ever-eccentric Ensign Pulver.
I gave young Ensign Pulver another drink of alcohol and orange juice, and it inspired him to relate further amorous feats of his.
And then Roberts admits that maybe being the XO of a cargo ship isn't as thrilling as the brochure made it sound.
The Admiral John J. Finchley Award for delivering more toothpaste and toilet paper than any other Navy cargo ship in the safe area of the Pacific.
And so he's been pulling for a transfer.
What is it? My application for transfer. I've been rewriting it ever since I got off watch last night.
But apparently the captain of the Reluctant is being quite a hard-ass about the whole thing.
Every week, the captain screams like a stuck pig, disapproves your letter, and forwards it.
Roberts is then joined by the chief, who pleads for the crew to get shore leave.
Mr. Roberts, when are you going to the captain again and ask him to give this crew a liberty? These guys ain't been off this ship for over a year except on duty.
But alas, the captain is being a hard-ass about that too.
Dowdy, the last time I asked the captain was last night.
What'd he say?
He said no.
And then we get to meet the beloved captain as he waters his prized palm tree. Down in sick bay, some lazy shits try to get out of work.
Honest, Doc, I couldn't even straighten up. I guess it's the old appendix again, huh, Doc?
But the doc doesn't have time for their bullshit.
That appendix of yours certainly gets around, Reba. Now it's on the wrong side.
And the crew takes some time to enjoy the scenery of the mainland.
Holy God, it got nurses on that island! That nurse! She's taking a shower!
Ah, knock it off!
But of course, Captain Hardass quickly puts a stop to that too. A brawl breaks out and Roberts is forced to step in.
Knock it off! Signet, you hear me? Knock it off!
Realizing the men desperately need a liberty, Roberts hatches a plan.
You seen that, sir? Last night down in the compartment, I stopped 3 of them fights. Worse than that. They gotta have a liberty, Mr. Roberts. What are you gonna do?
I just got a new angle.
You're not going over the captain's head.
Well, I'm going around his end, I hope. Get the lead out, Dowdy.
And then we meet Ensign Pulver,
If I could be with you.
who's more than happy to help out Roberts with whatever scheme he's planning.
Why, Frank Thurlow Pulver. Huh? You mean to say you'd be willing to unglue yourself from that sack for the purpose of doing a favor for someone else?
And so Roberts and Pulver go to the mainland.
Oh, if I could be with you an hour tonight.
And Pulver quickly makes some new friends while trying to procure some aspirin.
Attention!
Well, this is going to be all right.
Aren't you going to answer our salute?
Sure, yeah. It'll make you feel any happier. like to come out to the ship this afternoon? Because it just so happens I have a bottle of Red Label in my cabin.
The shore boat at the dock at 1800 minus 10.
And back on the ship, Pulver learns of Robert's plans to transfer.
It's gonna blow the old man right through the overhead. This letter's liable to get him transferred.
And then we're treated to Ensign Pulver's dirty pillow collection.
We plow deep while others sleep.
And after finding out that Pulver has a hot date with a nurse, Roberts and the doc whip up some booze so Pulver can get her shit-faced and take advantage of her. You know, like the respectful gentleman that he is.
Smooth! That dumb little blonde will never know the difference.
And as they get to talking, Roberts tells Pulver what he really thinks about him.
You're the most hapless, lazy, disorganized, and in general, the most lecherous person I've ever known in my life. You sleep 16 hours a day. He's been reading God's Little Acre for over a year now. He's underlined every erotic passage and added exclamation points.
And then he calls Pulver out on all his harebrained schemes.
He lies in his sack all day long, bores me silly with great moronic plots against the captain. He's never carried out one of them.
And then Pulver tells Roberts that he's a total tard for trying to get a transfer off the ship.
They'll transfer you. You'll get your can shot off, boy.
And the doc actually agrees with him.
You are stupid, Doug, and I can prove it. This sorry old bucket does a necessary job, and you're the guy who keeps her lumbering along.
But Roberts has his mind set on the matter.
Look, Doc, the war's way out there and I'm here. Well, I don't want to be here. I want to be out there.
And while he's unloading cargo, the captain confronts Roberts on his transfer letter.
You think you're pretty cute with this letter, don't you? Trying to get me in bad with the Admiral. I got a good reputation with the Admiral, and I ain't gonna lose it on account of any letter that's written by some smart aleck college officer.
And then the captain finally meets Ensign Pulver for the first time.
How long have you been aboard, Pulver?
14 months, sir.
14 months?
And while the crew is taking a leisurely swim, Pulver gets ready for his big date.
Request permission to come aboard, sir.
Yeah, well, permission granted. Hop aboard.
But he soon gets more than he bargained for.
Request permission to come aboard, sir. Request permission to come aboard, sir.
No, that's all.
And so Pulver gives the nurses a tour, posing as the ship's XO.
Flemish up the lines aft there, will you, Donnie?
What?
Yeah, new man.
Pulver then wrecks the crew's whole peeping Tom hobby.
You can see your hospital right from over the rail here.
Ensign Pulver.
Well, you certainly can see Cobina.
We gotta get back and hang those window curtains right away.
So, to cheer up the men, Roberts manages to get the men some shore leave at a tropical island.
Is the largest of the Limbo Islands. It's often referred to as the Polynesian Paradise.
And upon arrival, the crew of the Reluctant is greeted by the friendly locals.
We finally made it, huh, Mr. Roberts?
Yeah.
And of course, old Captain Stick Up the Ass doesn't approve.
When are you gonna let this crew go ashore?
I'm not. It was not my idea coming to this Liberty port. It seems one of my officers arranged it with a certain port director.
And then, like a total D-bag, he decides to cancel Liberty for the whole crew.
Don't you hear that music? Don't you know it's tearing those guys apart? They're breakable, Captain, I promise you.
And then he and Roberts have it out.
That is the cap of a full commander. I'm going to wear that cap someday, and nobody ain't going to stand between me and that hat. Certainly not you.
Ah, you ignorant, arrogant, ambitious, keeping 62 men in prison. I don't know which I hate worse, you or that other malignant growth that stands outside your door. How did you ever get command of a ship?
Roberts then eventually gives in to the captain's BS for the good of the men.
What do you want for Liberty, Captain?
You are through writing letters. Ever. You're through talking back to me in front of the crew. When I give an order, you jump. Liberty for the entire crew will commence immediately. I repeat.
You don't have to tell them again.
Liberty.
They heard you.
And needless to say, the men made the most of their leave.
You You men crashed a dance for Army personnel?
Yes, sir, and they made us feel unwelcome.
Hi, Mr. Roberts. I'm drunk as a ghost. Show him how drunk I am.
And I don't even want to know what this guy's plans for the evening are. And the next morning, the captain is ripped shit yet again, and the reluctant is forced to depart.
Kicked out! Kicked out! The first time I ever been kicked out of a port! You're going to pay for this, mister! Now get that gangway up and we're going to get out of here!
The captain then addresses the crew with his usual jovial charm.
Getting me kicked out of port that way? Well, we are going to erase this blot from my record if we have to work 24 hours a day. We are going to move more cargo than we ever moved before.
The crew are then surprised to see a change in Roberts' attitude towards the captain, unaware of their little deal.
Wouldn't that be all right, Roberts?
Yes, sir, if you say so.
You just heard me say so.
Roberts and the doc have a little chat.
Doc, that shows you how far gone I am. I've been blaming them for something that...
You've made some sort of an agreement with the captain, haven't you?
Agreement? I don't know what you mean.
Doc, turn on the radio. Turn it on.
And then they learn that the war in Europe has finally come to an end.
The war is over in Europe. The war is over in Europe. Germany has surrendered unconditionally to the Allied armies.
And Ensign Pulver has an idea on how to celebrate the good news.
Wait a minute, what is it?
A firecracker. We're gonna heave a firecracker under that old man's bunk and bam, bam, bam!
But then Ensign Pulver ends up blowing his load way too early.
Hey there, up on the bridge. Is there anything wrong up there?
Roberts then tries to talk to the men, but they give him the cold shoulder.
Whatever you want, sir.
Well, guess I'll let the old sack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Roberts comes up with a brilliant idea to not only get back at the captain, but also win back the respect of the men. And as expected, the captain totally loses his shit.
Sound the general alarm!
The crewmen soon learn of the loss of the beloved palm tree and are obviously devastated.
Kelly. Kevin. What?
The captain then realizes who the culprit is and immediately calls Roberts to the bridge.
That's the one. Get him up here! Get him up here right now! Get him up here!
Mr. Roberts will report to the captain's cabin on the double.
And as he attempts to scold Roberts, he can't quite seem to get the words out.
You stabbed me in the back! You stabbed me in the...
God! Choking on my own rage here.
And with the captain about to drop dead, Roberts hastily calls for the doctor.
Will the doctor please report to the captain's cabin on the double?
Who rushes to the bridge at lightning speed. And unfortunately for everybody, the captain pulls through. And somehow the captain gets his palm tree back, and Mr. Roberts finally gets his transfer.
Okinawa? You be mighty careful, Doug boy.
And then he finds out how he got his transfer.
What do you think got you your orders? This crew got you transferred. You couldn't send in a letter for transfer, so they sent one in for you. They knew the captain wouldn't sign it approved, so they didn't bother him. They signed it for him.
And Roberts gets a little choked up over it.
I love those guys.
And then we learn that Ensign Pulver just got a promotion.
I'm the new cargo officer.
And then the men hold a little going away party.
It's a palm tree, see?
It was Dowdy's idea, sir.
To Lieutenant J.G. Douglas Roberts for action against the enemy, above and beyond the call of duty.
And so, Mr. Roberts has a final drink with his men before setting off on his next assignment. Some time passes, and it's back to the norm for the crew of the Reluctant, and then the mail arrives and the crew gets a sentimental letter from Roberts.
Dear Frank, this will be short and sweet, as we're shoving off in about 2 minutes. I've been aboard this destroyer for 2 weeks now, and we've already been through 4 air attacks. I'm glad to be here. I had to be here, I guess. Right now, I'm looking at something that's hanging over my desk. A preposterous hunk of brass attached to the most bilious piece of ribbon I've ever seen. So, Doc, and especially you, Frank, don't let those guys down.
And then we get some not so good news.
What is it?
Mr. Roberts is dead.
And now Pulver's pissed, and he decides to do something about it.
Ensign Pulver, and I just threw your stinking palm tree overboard.
And that was Mr. Roberts, the only war movie I ever saw that didn't have a war in it. Not a shot was fired and nobody was killed, or at least on screen, that is. And I found the film to be well-paced, well-directed, and well-acted from the entire cast, especially Jack Lemmon as Ensign Pulver, who would actually go on to win an Academy Award for his performance. In fact, there's a sequel to Mr. Roberts called Ensign Pulver, starring Charlie X himself, Robert Walker Jr., as well as a very short-lived television series. So, needless to say, after 70 years, Mr. Roberts still remains a real gem. So until next time, folks, this is me to you, wishing you all the best, and reminding you to always keep it real. Bye-bye.